Hi, I'm Shirley, and today we have an interview with the artist and YouTuber Fionapollo. On YouTube, Fionapollo does commentary videos regarding art and pop culture, and she also makes videos involving art challenges and her webcomic, Synthesis. Her art style has this expressive, cartoon charm to it that really brings out the personalities of her characters, or they feel like characters you would have grown up with, even if you're just getting to know them now. We'll learn what inspires her art, the thought process behind her comic, as well as what it's like to be a YouTuber when one of your videos suddenly goes big. Is it easy to keep creating when you have so many more eyes on your work? Or is the pressure so much that it crushes the motivation to post? Without further ado, let's welcome Apollo herself. Thanks so much for your time, and I'm so excited to learn more about you.
Thank you. I'm really glad that you invited me to do this. Thank you so much.
I guess for starters, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name's Fionapollo. I do art commentary and story times and things like that on YouTube. I've been doing it for about probably just over a year now. I started in October 2020. I created the channel itself in the end of November 2020. And yeah, ever since then I've just kind of been uploading art commentary videos, and it's been a lot of fun.
How long do you think you've been drawing in general?
Oh, in general, just kind of generally drawing as a child. I've been doing it since about 4 years old, but it was only around mid-teens, I'd say about 16, 17, that I started to take it seriously, because that was when we started getting introduced to things like university, and I was thinking that I would like to do something art-based at that level.
Did you end up studying art?
I ended up going to a local uni for animation, and that was really eye-opening. And I was quite surprised that I got in, because actually at the interview, I knew nothing about animation. I was a complete amateur. I'd never done it before. I literally decided on a whim that I would apply for it, and I didn't even take a portfolio.
Oh my goodness.
But they seemed happy to take me on, so it kind of just went from there.
Yeah, and I've seen that you've made a lot of animations on your channel, so I'm guessing you learned a lot over the past few years too.
Yeah, after I finally made it on, I did try to make the effort to apply myself, because I kind of realised that I would have a lot to learn. So I like to try and keep that up as much as I can, even if I'm not really doing it as regularly now.
Who would you say has supported you the most along the way in becoming an artist?
I'd probably say one of my oldest friends. To be honest, I'm quite secretive about my hobbies in real life, not through any particular reason, but just because I'm kind of private in general. But I have a friend who I've known since we were practically starting school, and she's an artist as well, and she definitely inspires me a lot. She helps me keep myself on track a lot of the time. I miss her a lot. We talk every day, but I haven't really been able to see her, obviously, because of reasons. So I would like to get back to that, because we do have a lot of really good discussions, and we draw a lot of stuff together.
Oh, that's so sweet. Having artist friends is so much fun. You can just hang out and draw.
Literally, just talk about fandom things, talk about art. It's the life, it really is.
Are there any shows or art styles that you think inspire your own style?
I don't know if this is going to be a really, really basic answer or not, but I really like Sailor Moon. That is my main thing that I've loved since being a kid. I also really like Steven Universe. Obviously, over the years, that's kind of gotten a bit controversial, but at its peak, it was very influential, and I really enjoyed it. I liked the colours, I liked the backgrounds especially. I found that I really seem to like the prettiness of anime and the comedy of Western cartoons. So one of my favourite cartoons growing up was Ed, Edd and Eddy. So as a result, I really like kind of zany facial expressions on characters and things like that, and slapstick's really funny as well to me. So I like to try and mix those if I can.
Yeah, I feel like I can definitely see a lot of influences like those in your art. I've been reading the original launch of Synthesis over the past week. The expressions really stood out to me. I think it's cool that you've taken inspiration from things like that and applied it to your own art.
Oh, thank you so much. I didn't realize that you got hold of that.
Oh yeah, I thought I'd check it out. I have some questions about Synthesis later on, so I'm excited to ask about those too.
Yeah, brilliant.
What's your favorite thing to draw?
Compared to everything that I draw online, this is probably going to come from left field a bit, but I actually really love to draw 3D food art. So in my spare time, away from all of the things that I show publicly, I've been trying to learn to sculpt in 3D. I'm still very bad at it, but I'm trying. And just one thing that I really love, and I don't know why, it just, as soon as I see it, it's just serotonin. Instant. It's just little game props, on websites like Sketchfab, that you can turn around and look at. And I love when people do food items, so pies and things. I just think they look so adorable.
Yeah, I agree with that. I used to be really into game design, and my favorite thing was downloading other people's little food props and little tiny assets. They're so adorable.
They really are.
while you're drawing, do you like to listen to anything or watch anything?
Depends on what I'm making. Most of the time I'll have one song that's motivating me and I'll have that on repeat for a little while. Or if it's a comic, I can't really do that because the comic is so long and takes so long to finish. I will normally put on a music mix or an album just to see me through the whole thing. Or if it's animation, I can't listen to anything at all because I didn't realize that this was an actual thing, but apparently some people, listening to music kind of impacts your other senses. And when I animate, I can see the movement in my head of what I want to do, but music kind of also gives me that effect, so it kind of interferes with what I'm trying to draw. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I can see that because I know in my own art, if I feel a certain emotion, it'll affect the way I draw it, and I'm sure music can influence that a lot too.
Oh, definitely. It really does.
So now I have some questions that are YouTube specific, since I was curious about I guess the ins and out of running a channel and creating videos.
Yeah, sure thing.
When you first started your channel, did you know what kind of videos you wanted to make, or was it something you kind of figured out with time?
So this isn't actually my first channel that I've tried to do. Originally, I think it was about 2018-ish. I originally wanted to do animated story times, Jaden animation style. But the problem with those is that obviously they take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I think Jaden has a bit of help with hers, doesn't she? So in the end, I think I did one and it took me about 3 months. And I just thought, no, this is way too much. And towards the end of 2020, I actually stumbled upon some art commentary channels. Thuman was a big one. And I really enjoyed the way that she went about it, the way that she just had this really calming speed paint in the background while she spoke about something that she was very passionate about. And originally I thought, oh, this is really cool, but I don't know if this would work for me. And then I found Hopeless Peaches' channel, and she sounds very similar to me, and that was one thing that I was very nervous about. I didn't know if people were gonna listen to me and think that I sounded stupid because of my accent. And as soon as I heard her doing it, I was like, oh, actually, people seem to really like her. Maybe this isn't unachievable. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Yeah, it just kind of went from there. Originally it was animated story times, but I found that talking about the topics that I'm really passionate about, obviously I talk a lot about being gay and things like that. I talk about issues in fandom. Those are the things that I'm now finding that I'm really passionate about and I really enjoy talking about, even if they don't seem so important to other people.
No, I think that's part of what makes YouTube so cool. You can talk about the things you're passionate about and there will always be an audience, somebody who's also passionate about it too and wants to learn more.
Yeah, there's always going to be that niche of people, and it really does drive you.
Which video of yours would you say is your favorite so far?
I'd probably say it was one that I did not long ago in November. It was Hisui and Pokemon designs. It was in prep for, Pokemon Legends Arceus coming out. I wanted it to be 360, so VR, and I really, really enjoyed making that, and I really challenged myself with it. It was a lot of work, and I did kind of set myself a bit of a deadline for it, so it was a bit of a rush, but in the end, I think I did really well. Obviously there are some things that I could have done a bit better. I think there's a little bit of clipping in certain parts, but overall, I was really proud of myself when I came out of it, because it was, it was a bit draining towards the end, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I imagine, some videos, they have so much effort, and you're I already made so much, I just have to finish it.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I really like that video. I remember it. It had this very atmospheric feeling, like you were just there in the field while you were drawing.
Yeah, honestly, the most fun aspect of making that was definitely the background, making it loop. And when I finally figured it out, I felt like a genius.
Your discussion style videos, the ones that are analyses and talking about things that you're passionate about, they seem like they have so much thought put behind them, and I really appreciate the care that goes into it. I was kind of curious what your process is for making these videos. Do you have to do any research or scripting?
So yeah, typically what I would do in terms of research is I would have a Google document, and at the footnotes of every single document I have, I will post a whole bunch of links to the things that I look at, and I would post pictures. And typically I would also have about 3 scripts going at a time, and depending on things like motivation, what ideas I have for what I want to say, the sections, and obviously the info available, all that goes into which script gets finished first, and that is the script that I would end up recording and editing first as well. Obviously I try to do as much research as I can, and I do try to think of it from all angles, but I am still just one person, so this can obviously sometimes lead to a few gaps, like what we've seen with the Encanto video blowing up. A lot of people are pointing out that I mentioned Bruno having tics, and that was obviously a mistake on my part. So yeah, As much research as I try to do, there are still some gaps in my knowledge, and I think something I need to learn to do is ask people what their opinions are and what are some things that they think are important to speak about. But I think that's more an issue of getting over the fear of bothering people.
Yeah, I feel that, like, when I was reaching out to you, I was, like, so nervous beforehand. I was like, should I email her? Should I email her?
Absolutely, email me, please. I love hearing from people.
But yeah, getting, like, other people's opinions, I feel like definitely helps. But also, like, you know, you're, like, one person making a video that, like, the Encanto video was, like, so, like, in-depth. You normally expect, like, a whole team to make a video like that. So I think it was really deep for what it is.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that someone thinks that. To be honest, I'm still kind of blown away that it got the viewership that it did. I really wasn't expecting it, and as a result, I've kind of been overthinking, like, whether I did too little research and things.
How has it been, like, seeing, like, your channel, like, suddenly grow out of nowhere like that? Or, you know, not out of nowhere, like, you spent a bunch of time building up your content and things and making videos, but, like, having that one video that got a lot of attention out of the blue, what was that like?
At first, it was exciting. Obviously, when you get, like, a sudden burst of attention that you're like, oh, you know, this is really good, like, I'm doing things right. And then when it starts to get really, really blown up and you start to see the comments slowly drift from being generally positive to a bit more mixed, you do start to feel a bit like a rabbit in headlights. You start thinking, oh god, was this actually a mistake? Like, I'm still a bit iffy on how I feel about it blowing up, but I'm happy that so many people liked it, and I am glad about the feedback that I received, whether it's positive or not. I just hope that I can apply it in future videos, and I hope that people like what I make in the future, because that's another anxiety as well. I do have another video that's ready to go up, but I'm very conscious that because the Encanto video did so well, and because it's focused on something that people are very passionate about at the moment, my engagement's probably going to drop like a cliff.
I don't know, I'm, like, really excited to see what more you make. Hopefully they subscribed for you, because, like, I doubt they would subscribe being like, this is the person who makes Encanto videos, I will only subscribe for that. Like, I highly doubt that's the case.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see.
If they're anything like me, like, people like hearing your ideas and, like, what you have to say.
Aw, I think my face is going red.
Since you make so many different kinds of art, like, you do animations, full illustrations, webcomics, do you have, like, a different, like, mental state you kind of have to get into for each type of digital art you do?
Oh, definitely. I think it's the easiest to get into the illustration one because it's a bit less setup. You literally just open Clip Studio Paint or something and you can just start stabbing at the tablet. With animations, it's a bit more effort. You need to kind of allocate the files, you need to make sure you have everything organized. Obviously, like I said before, I can't listen to music, so that can impact my concentration a little bit as well. In terms of webcomics, I think that's the one that takes kind of the most mental concentration because you're also kind of orchestrating this entire... It's like you're doing an animatic, but then you're fully illustrating the animatic. And...
oh, dang.
Yeah. As well as that, I also have to make sure that I have it in the correct format to send off to my friend who has agreed to kind of be my colorist, who's helping me out. So I need to make sure that all of that's correct, add it to the proper folders on a Google Drive. It's generally a lot more brain power and takes a few more brain cells. So as a result, that tends to be the thing that takes the most mental strain, I would say.
And I'm sure with, like, webcomics, you also have the whole, like, having to tie in the story to it as well, and, like, make it cohesive.
Yeah, the writing as well. Like, just like videos, generally I make a script and quite a few other webcomic makers do that as well. And that really plays into how much thinking goes into it as well, because even if you write a script, I've found that I almost never follow it when I'm putting it into the panels themselves because you need to make them fit in a way that doesn't encompass the entire scene.
The amount of thought that goes into webcomics, like, amazes me. Like, I want to get into it, but so much work.
Yeah, people who do it full-time terrify me. I'll be completely honest, and I admire them for it. It takes a lot of commitment.
On the topic of art YouTube, what's your favorite thing about being an art YouTuber?
I think my favorite part is I'm just happy that I'm able to still use my skills in a way that feels pretty productive. Before I was going to do YouTube, I was obviously trying to break into the animation industry because, like, I did an animation course. I actually went on to do a master's the year that the pandemic began, and things just kind of all went wrong from there. Up until that point, it was going perfectly. Like, even though I was still kind of an amateur, I was getting, like, really good grades in my classes and things like that, and my professors really liked my stories. But after that, I was going to apprentice in a studio, but that studio shut down because of COVID. Oh. So I think YouTube is just kind of like my way of living vicariously, doing a creative career, and it really helps to keep my spirits up.
Yeah, and you're able to like put out things that like you want to make creatively.
Exactly, and the good thing about it as well is that you don't have to worry about making things for other people as well. Obviously, if I was to go into animation, it would be making other people's creations come true, which is fulfilling in itself, but there's just something nice about being able to work on your own projects.
I think I'm now going to move on to some questions about synthesis.
Of course.
First of all, in case there are any viewers who aren't familiar with your comic, how would you describe synthesis?
Synthesis takes place in an idealistic future, and it features two protagonists who work as superheroes. So basically, the story is that in this alternate universe, I think in around 2013 I made it, because it coincides with another story that I made which explains the origins of this. Earth was contacted by another alien race, basically, who was also experiencing a lot of climate crisis, a lot of anxieties to do with the planet's future and things like that, similar to what we're going through. And I say idealistic because they managed to work together and they managed to somehow find ways to help each other, and they managed to save each other. And this results in them having all of these kinds of advances in technology, in space travel, and eventually they manage to find two other species that also help with this, and these become the four species that create the foundation of the characters that we see in Synthesis, because when these species kind of all, well, recreate with each other, it improves the chances of developing what we would know to be superpowers. And the two protagonists of Synthesis, this is another thing as well. I don't know why I chose this name, because I have a lisp. I can't say it properly. But the two protagonists are Fox and Hema. Fox is a pyrokinetic, so she controls fire. Hema controls ice. He's cryokinetic. And they've kind of landed in this hero kind of firm who they tend to work a bit similarly to, say, like the police or the fire service or something like that, except it's a bit more glam. It's like a cross between civil service and influencers. It's kind of a weird concept. Ooh. The way I tried to describe it is like football clubs more than anything. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's probably a little bit confusing, but yeah, they just kind of ended up there, and they're trying to figure out like what they want to do with their lives, like what gives them meaning. And Fox has been there the longest and is quite jaded and depressed about her situation because she still isn't quite sure. And at the point in the story, she's actually 32, while Hema is brand new. And he came to the firm because he had some issues with his powers becoming a bit too powerful. And he's very hopeful that this is something where he can basically make something of himself. And that's where a lot of the conflict arises from.
I've definitely seen that throughout the story. Like, Hema's, like, ice powers are definitely, like, more powerful than he lets on initially. And that's really cool.
Yeah, I'll admit that in the first draft of the comic, I was a bit unsure about the direction I wanted to take Hema. I didn't know if I wanted him to be fully incompetent or if I wanted him to be kind of, like, hiding things back. But I think more so now, I like that idea of him just trying to suppress himself more for the sake of just not spiraling and hurting people.
Yeah, as cool as powers seem in like our universe, like there is definitely that dark side to having powers where like you don't want to accidentally hurt somebody with them.
Yeah, definitely.
How much do you think the plot is like different between the original take of Synthesis and the relaunch that you've started doing?
To be honest, probably not that different really. I think my main issue with the original is that I didn't really know what I was doing. When I first made the comic, I was working in a greengrocer, and it was my way of just kind of keeping myself satiated while working this stressful job because I was climbing the walls for a creative project. And when I made it, I was doing 1 page a week, no planning at all. I was just winging it like the whole way through. And that was the way that it was for about 2 years of the comic's creation. I was just making it up on the fly. And as a result, I ended up doing a flashback sequence, and that was only supposed to last about half a chapter, one chapter, something like that, at most, and it ended up encompassing like the entire story so far, and I don't really know how that happened, and that was the main thing that I kind of wanted to retcon more than anything, because I wanted to move things along.
I think the flashback is like pretty cool though, like it kind of shows you how the characters got to where they are.
That's the tricky thing as well, because it definitely feels like it helped me to develop them. So now it's kind of like the weird, do I risk this development, or do I drive the plot forward and hope that the development catches up?
Yeah, stories are definitely like their own monster to try to like manage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have any other stories that like you've been working on the side? Or is this like your main story you've been looking at?
Surprisingly, this was only supposed to be like a side story or like a mini story that like sets the precedent for this universe. The original I have, it kind of tells the story of how these species came to be in kind of a weird how did this happen kind of way. I'm very excited about it. It's been in my head for almost 10 years now. I think it was about 2013 when I made it up, but I am very excited to start writing that when I finally get the chance. Aside from that, I am thinking of doing like a little mini-series with Mint. I've been kind of testing the waters with figuring out her personality and a few other characters' personalities on TikTok. But we'll see with that one. I'm still not too sure yet what I want to do with that.
If you know yet, it's fine if you don't, but like, do you think Mint is like in the universe of Synthesis, or would she be from like a different universe?
That would be very cool if she was. I don't know though. I think Mint is just kind of her own entity. If she was to appear, I think it would be as like a fun little cameo and not really much else.
I see, that's fair. If I remember correctly, I think you mentioned in one of your videos that a Paramore song inspired Synthesis, and I thought that was pretty cool as someone who's listened to some Paramore songs. Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah, of course. So, obviously, like I said, I was working at this job. It was also around the time that the Marvel Cinematic Universe was like at its peak of popularity, I think. So, obviously, there was a lot of hype around like which heroes were getting their own movies and like what kind of stories we were getting from them, how they were going to link up. The main thing that I was seeing as well, you know, as a queer person on the internet, was when are they going to release a gay subplot, or like, you know, when are they going to release a gay hero or something like that? And I just kind of knew it wasn't going to happen. This was another thing they brought up in the Encanto video as well, about gay characters. I said something about trying to get that from Disney, being like squeezing blood from a stone, and a lot of people brought up the Owl House. The Owl House is a TV show, and the standards around that is a little bit different. Obviously, with TV, it's a lot more localized, but with film, they do try to make it as internationally acceptable as possible. So I have very big doubts about that happening, really. Unless they want to sacrifice the revenue from China or something.
Yeah, that's like something I've definitely noticed too. Like when they do have queer representation, it's in their shows and things that they know have a smaller audience. And they know with TV shows, it won't be as big of a cultural phenomenon as the movie might be.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of the issue. But yeah, I noticed that people were talking about this quite a bit in relation to the MCU, and it was kind of frustrating me because I knew the reasons why, and that was one of the things that contributed to making Synthesis. But I also realised that Paramore released an album in 2017, After Laughter I think it's called, and there was a song on it called Idol Worship, and that was like the song that immediately got me thinking about these characters. And it especially made me think about Fox being like, stop worshipping me, like I'm too depressed for this, don't look up to me, and things like that. And then the other one that was really the kicker that just shocked me on this whole album was Rose Colored Boy as well. Obviously, I don't know if it's quite visible on the flashbacks, but part of Hima's costume is like a kind of rosy pink, and I thought that was like a nice callback to that song. And it was definitely about someone who seemed quite like they had rose-colored glasses on, and I think that really fit for him. So those were like two songs that really inspired the main protagonists for Synthesis.
That's really interesting. Something else I'm kind of curious about, like, with the whole, like, creation of Synthesis was the character design, because, like, the minute Maggie appeared on the page, I was like, okay, she's my favorite. I was curious, like, what was the thought that went into her design? Is she based on a certain species, or was this, like, a new species you created for Synthesis?
So yeah, the 4 species that are involved in the universe, obviously we've got humans. I'm actually really into fantasy creatures and mythology. I have a lot of books on it. So these characters and these species are actually based on mythical creatures. So for example, you've got elves, who are like the characters like G, that's what she's inspired by. You have Stal and Roy, who are Bershans, and they are inspired by werewolves and vampires, most particularly Roy, because I think he's like a mix of those two. An interesting thing about the Bershans as well is that I created that species around the time that Russia's anti-gay ban came into effect, as kind of like a, well, stuff you. So as a result, the Bershan planet itself in my head is very kind of coldish, it's very like winter all around, very dark, things like that. And Maggie's species is called Gwerin, and they are inspired by fairies, obviously because there's a lot of like fairy folklore all around the world. The planet is kind of comprised of a bunch of islands, and yeah, so that was kind of the thought process behind each of them. But Maggie in particular, her species, I'm trying to think about where that inspiration came from, but I genuinely can't remember. Like, I've tried to think about it for years, but obviously it's been 10 years at this point. All I remember really is being really proud of the way that I came up with the structure for the ears. But yeah, the way that came about is kind of a mystery, even to me.
Dang, that's really cool. Oh, I also had some like silly and fun questions I wanted to ask relating to Synthesis and like its characters.
Oh yeah, go for it.
If you could have any of the abilities that the characters in Synthesis have, which ability would you choose?
I think I'd probably go for ecos, because I actually really, really like plants, but I can't keep any of them alive. So I wouldn't mind having, like, you know, that ideal kind of millennial home that's going around at the moment that's just surrounded in plants. It looks like a greenhouse. That sounds really appealing to me, so I wouldn't mind having a power like that. It also seems like a very benevolent power too. You can't really go wrong with plants. Unless, of course, you know, you're making, like, dangerous ones.
I'm also totally leaning toward Eco's power.
Yeah.
Never having a plant die would be amazing.
It really would, wouldn't it? To be honest, I think Eco is one of the characters I'm really excited about fleshing out, because I feel bad. I feel like I haven't developed her as much as the others, but the whole idea behind her is that she is very reserved and she is very secretive.
I see, that makes sense. Like, she doesn't seem as, like, open as the other characters are. Like, the other characters seem, like, much more, like, open about expressing how they feel and what they're thinking in the moment.
Yeah, she tends to be a lot more kind of... I don't think she's nervous about emotions, I just don't think she knows how to handle them. And I like to try and think of some one-liners for her too. I think she'd be really funny. She's the kind to be, like, brutally honest with people, and I think that has a lot of potential.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Especially if, like, they're characters that don't talk a lot, like, or don't speak their mind often. Like, when they do, it hits harder.
Yeah.
If you could hang out with a character from Synthesis in real life, who would you choose? Like, I don't know, to get a coffee or something.
Oh, damn. I would probably go with Sal, purely because he's inspired by a lot of my friends. Strangely enough, most of my friends in real life are actually, like, psychology students or psychology graduates. One of them actually works with, like, criminals, like, psychoanalyzing them. So I would be interested to, like, have a intellectual discussion with him, I suppose. As pretentious as that sounds.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. They seem so chill also. Like, was their power, like, they're invulnerable, kind of? Or invincible?
The idea behind Sal is that he's kind of like a rock for people. So he isn't typically a person who propels people forward or, like, stands in the way or anything like that, but he is definitely someone that they cling to and they just kind of use as, like, a support system. And he really takes to that role too. He likes helping people get from A to B. And I thought that that was, like, a good way to go about it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and it kind of helps, like, balance out the, like, overall team dynamic.
Yeah.
And then from an art standpoint with the comic, which character do you find the most fun to draw?
Oh, definitely Maggie, I think. She's definitely one of the most fun to think up designs for, because obviously she's a bit of a fashionista. I really liked the idea of kind of having her in different outfits from different time periods. Like, I've actually got a whole Pinterest thing just for her, like, to do with TikTok fashions and things like that, of outfits that I want to put her in. It's just finding the time more than anything.
Ooh, that's exciting, because, like, part of her thing is she's, like, in charge of the team's outfits, right?
Yeah, so she is kind of like a cross between a seamstress and a textile engineer, so she does help to develop, like, things that are, like, bulletproof, for example, or things like that, and she's very good at what she does.
Yeah, you can, like, definitely see that across the page, and, like, as I read more of the original launch, I'm excited to see, like, more of what she does. So the next set of questions I have is kind of, like, looking ahead a little bit. Do you have any fun art-related plans coming up that, like, you can share right now?
Currently, not really. My plan more at the moment is to just get a few things off my plate. I've been kind of under a lot of pressure lately because I have, like, a commission that someone came to me about, probably about 5 months ago now, and it's just kind of been ongoing for a while. I'll be glad when that's finished. It should be finished pretty soon, and then I'll be able to finally work on some other projects. Aside from that, like I said, the TikTok mini-series I'm thinking of doing with Mint and Friends, I do like the idea of fleshing that out. It sounds like it would be quite fun.
Yeah, it'd be really cool to see that. Do you have any, like, upcoming videos that you've been working on or that you're looking forward to?
I have a few to do with, like, fandoms that I'm really interested in. There's a Sailor Moon video coming up, but that one is quite high effort, so I don't know exactly when that's going to come out. I do have a sticky note next to me. I don't mind really sharing these. I think anyone could do these ideas. I wouldn't mind going into this thing I heard about with companies specifically seeking out artists with big followings to take on for creative projects and kind of riding off their popularity to sell the projects. I heard that going around a little while ago and it's really intrigued me, so I kind of want to do some research into it, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's really cool. I have noticed, like, some partnerships with artists, they have huge followings, so, like, that may be cool to hear about.
Yeah, and I think another one as well, I really want to talk about Homestuck. Just to cap that off.
I haven't gotten into Homestuck yet, but I heard it's pretty cool.
It's very mixed in its reception, I think. Some people, like me, I really, really love it, and some people look at it and think, what on earth is this? Like, what is the appeal? I really like it because of the multimedia aspect of it. Like, obviously there was Flash animations, there was games, there was all kinds of things, and it was a lot of fun. That's the thing. With Flash being gone now, I don't even know if the games would play. I hope they do.
I was so bummed out when they got rid of that. Like, so many of my favorite internet games are all Flash.
Yeah, that was such a shock. Like, there was so much of, like, a phenomenon with Flash games and Flash animations, especially on Newgrounds. It feels like a lot of that's been lost now because of that.
Yeah. Hopefully there's still, like, an outlet for people who want to make those kinds of games.
Hopefully.
I think the last question I had is there anything I haven't asked yet that you'd like to talk about?
I can't quite think of anything. No, I think you asked some pretty good questions there, so I think you've got me on that one.
Thanks. I had so much fun interviewing you, and, like, thank you so much for, like, giving me a little insight into your art and your interests and, like, the thought that goes behind the things you make.
No problem. Thank you again for asking me to do this. Like, this was actually really, really nice. I really appreciated it.
Oh, that makes me really happy to hear. Yeah, thank you so much. Bye.
Of course, thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this interview. I really enjoyed getting an opportunity to learn more about Fionapollo's outlook on being an artist. And she's such a great person to talk to. If you haven't already, I'd highly recommend checking out her channel, Fionapollo, on YouTube, as well as giving her webcomic Synthesis a read. But for now, I think I'll leave you here. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!